of this absolutely amazing wader. They're really big bodies and they have this massive long bill that kind of curves down.
I mean, they're just the most wonderful bird. They're so exciting to see. Their long curved beak, they're really quite large. When they're flying, the sounds they make, the calls they make, the displays they make in the sky.
They're so well adapted to the two environments they live in, the coastal estuarine muds and these wonderful meadows rich in invertebrates.
My first time seeing one really close up, I was just so amazed by firstly how big it was and how proudly it stood there. And it was just such an impressive bird with that great long beak and that very beautiful colouring and that amazing call, and I just fell in love with them there and then.
The best bit about curlew is their song. It's the most incredible sound when you hear it when you're out walking in the countryside. It just makes you look up and think, what is making that noise?
As a child, they used to come in late February, early March. The call of the curlew was that incredibly special thing that sort of heralded early spring. It was a unique and special sound that one didn't hear anywhere else.
It's sort of really inspiring and wonderful to hear as it sort of, emanates across the landscape, and just, gets us really motivated for the start of our curlew conservation season.
So there used to be around 11 pairs of curlew that nested along this stretch of the Thames here in this series of 4 meadows. That was around 15 years ago. But last year there was only 1 pair. This year we've got 3, which is a little bit better, but it still shows how much the curlew have declined in this area.
Fewer birds are coming back, they're getting old. We're not fledging enough chicks. You can only see it going one way at the moment.
They're Britain's most endangered bird. Their numbers have dropped by half in the last 25 years, and we've got a really important population here in the Upper Thames. We've got about 10% of the lowland breeding population of curlews, and we need to do something to make sure that they can survive into the future and hopefully flourish and continue to be a part of our, of our day-to-day lives.
Curlew return to Otmore around about kind of February time from their wintering grounds, and they'll winter around the coastal areas of the UK and around France as well. When they return, they'll kind of hang around in kind of larger groups, and then as the spring progresses, they'll kind of separate up into territories. And Otmore is a really important breeding destination for them.
So by the middle of April, where we are at the moment here at Otmore, they're just starting to nest. So they'll be laying 3 to 4 eggs in a little cup in the grass here out across the meadow, then incubating those eggs for about a month, nearly a month. The eggs hatch and the chicks are immediately able to feed for themselves. They're very precocious and they wander across the grasslands, closely watched by the parents.
So the curlew love the hay meadows on Otmore. They're absolutely packed full of wildflowers, and there's also lots of invertebrates as well, which are really important food for when the chicks are running around in the spring, late spring months, picking up on grasshoppers and crickets and stuff like that. So that's the most important kind of habitat for them.
But the chicks actually take 5 weeks before they can fly, and that's a long period. They're very vulnerable during that spell of rapid growth. But all being well, by the middle of July, the young chicks will be taking their first flights across the meadows.
The adult birds will depart and the juveniles will stay around on the Otmore Basin, and around about kind of early August they'll then depart off to their wintering grounds.
And we won't see them again until the following February. Here in the Upper Thames, we've seen a gradual decline and a loss of range, so they've disappeared from 1 or 2 areas, but we still have a strong population of about 50 pairs. So we've got a great base to work from here with our recovery project. The causes of decline include the loss of habitat.
A lot of the wetland areas that they've used to nest and breed on have been drained. They've been drained for farming, or they've been even developed on as well for housing. Also, there's some changes in farming practices. The hay meadows that they've traditionally used have become silage fields, and they're kind of more intensively managed. So that's also contributed to their decline as well.
Many of the nests are failing at the moment because what we call generalist predators, that's particularly foxes and badgers, can find the nests and take the eggs, and of course then the birds have failed for that season.
We needed to find a solution as to what to do for them. So we looked into various projects around Europe to find out what was happening, and we found they were actually putting individual fences around the nests of curlew. And so we decided to trial it on Otmore, and it's been an absolute incredible success since we started doing it. In the first year, we managed to fledge 6 curlew chicks. In the second year, we fledged 7, and in the final third year, we actually fledged 9 curlew chicks. Before that, we hardly ever picked up curlew chicks fledging on Otmore.
Our project is focused on a group of volunteer field workers who are working with farmers and land managers across the Upper Thames to improve the productivity of our breeding curlews.
So we have a really great group of volunteers in this area. We have volunteers that go out and survey the area looking for the curlew pairs. Then we have another group who are our specialist nest finders, and they're the ones with really good ornithological skills, so the field skills. And they spend many hours out in the field just watching the birds and their behaviour and trying to work out exactly where the nests are.
It's an absolute thrill to see the birds coming to the area and going about their daily life, feeding, moving around, talking to each other, pick an area and start choosing exactly where they want to nest, and looking around and spotting that moment when they actually settle down and start to lay the eggs.
And we have a third group of volunteers who are our nest fencing team, and so I take them out once a nest has been found, take them out with all our electric fencing kit, and we go out into the field and put a fence around them.
And it's been very successful at keeping nests free from predation, and we're on 6 nests this year so far, with some more to find later this season hopefully.
So we've come out here into the field to fence a curlew nest today. So yesterday, one of our nest finding team came out, and he's located a nest just here with 4 eggs in. So he's marked it with these 2 canes, and so we've got our team of nest fencers ready to put up the fence. I'm just going to approach the nest, and we put this woolly hat on to keep the eggs warm. It's bad news, I'm afraid. The eggs have gone, unfortunately. It's an empty nest this morning. So this was only found yesterday. There were 4 eggs in it, and they've all gone overnight, presumably. I'm guessing this is probably a fox that's taken them, because when a badger takes eggs, it normally just crunches them straight up in the nest and leaves a mess, whereas a fox will carry them off back to its den. So you see a clean nest like we've got here. So it just really shows the importance of getting these fences up quickly, and because these nests are so vulnerable just out in the open like this, and they do get predated so quickly unless we can get the fences around them straight away.
So we arrived after pushing wheelbarrows over about a mile of sort of fairly rough ground to find an empty nest, which was very sad and annoying. Normally we would put the fence up with strands, 4 strands, so that the badgers or anything couldn't get through into it, and that would protect it, we hope, until the chicks can hatch.
Once a nest has been fenced, we go back and check on it about once a week or once every 10 days, and we make sure the fence is still up, the battery's still working. We trim underneath the fence line, otherwise the grass would grow up and start sapping the power of the battery. We know roughly when the nests are going to hatch, because it's 28 days after the 4th egg is laid and the bird starts incubating. So then we make sure one of the nest finders goes back to check on the birds at that point.
We're going to take the fence down today. We put it around the nest when we first saw the nest, and it was there until the eggs hatched. We weren't able to take it down straight away because the adults were in the vicinity, so we had to wait until they've moved away up the moor, and we're able to get now to access the fence and to get it down.
The next few weeks it's pretty difficult to spot the chicks because they're very small chicks in very big fields of very long grass. So it is hard to follow their progress, but the volunteers do the best they can, normally based around the behaviour of the adult birds. So if the adult birds are being very territorial and making a lot of noise, it normally means that the chicks are there somewhere amongst the grass. The chicks are then easier to spot once they're able to fly, which is about a month after they hatch, and then you can normally spot them flying, and you can tell them from the adult birds by the shorter bill length.
Farmers are really key to the success of this project because they're managing the land that the curlews are breeding on.
They allow us to go out across their fields to look for the nests, and they're allowing us to put up the fences on their fields as well. And it's brilliant to share the success stories when the nests hatch and then the chicks start to fledge as well. The farmers are all really excited to hear about what's going on their land.
For as long as I can remember, ever since I was a small child, we've been lucky enough to have curlews coming to our farm to nest. We have discovered that it's really hard on our farm. We have lots of predators for the curlews to get their eggs hatched and chicks fledged. We had a go at doing our first flexi net electric fence. We gave them a big space around, maybe 20 yards around in a square, and I think that was successful in getting the eggs to a hatching point, but then we couldn't monitor what had happened to the chicks. This year, we are so excited to find that the eggs have actually hatched, the curlew appear to still be there, the chicks are there, and we're hoping that there's going to be great things to come.
So this field used to be arable, like the one next door, but it was constantly getting flooded and wasn't growing very good crops. So about 15 years ago, I worked with the then landowner to create a habitat specifically for curlew. So we planted a mixture of wildflowers and grasses.
And with the help of Natural England, we've had the establishment of various scrapes putting in, and it's been really exciting that this year we've now finally got curlew nesting here.
And we've actually put up a fence around their nest to try and keep it safe from foxes and badgers, and hopefully it'll be successful and we'll have some chicks in here.
And everybody on the estate is very we can't wait to see exactly how it all pans out. Because the wildlife we're getting established here is just amazing.
All the farmers in this area are really supportive of the project, which is great. The extra work we're doing with the nest fencing, the farmers are allowing that completely voluntarily. We wouldn't be able to do that without having them on board. A lot of these farmers are in agri-environment schemes to manage these meadows in a certain way, so a late hay cut and then aftermath grazing to help the curlew.
We've always cut our hay late on our meadow. We actually now cut it even later. We're not allowed to cut it till after the 15th of July. And seeing chicks around now at this time of year and knowing that they actually take 5 to 6 weeks to fledge, you can see the importance of late cut hay. You can make really good hay in July. I think there's a lot that can be done. If farmers can link up, we've got neighbours up the valley who are also actually doing great things. Together, we can create a much bigger area, which is what actually curlew need.
So it's really great that we have the Thames Path running through this area. It gives people a chance to be able to see and hear the curlew, which is just such a lovely experience. But it is really important that people keep their dogs either on leads or close by them at this time of year, because a dog running loose through these meadows can cause the curlew nests to be destroyed or abandoned.
Curlews often breed in these meadows alongside the tributaries of the River Thames, and these are important places, of course, to retain flood water. So they're protecting our towns from floods. They're soaking up a lot of carbon, of course, great carbon sinks, and they're great places for wider biodiversity. There's loads of other wildlife here, and a massive food chain, of course, from the wetlands through to the drier margins of Otmore, with all the different sort of flowers and plants and invertebrates that you can find here. So the curlew really is a flagship bird for our meadows and for our wetlands here in the Upper Thames.
So we want to be able to create curlew habitat which is kind of connected across the Upper Thames, And it's not just about the curlew. As we create the habitat for the curlew, we'll start to see more wild flowers in some of our hay meadows. Some of the grassland areas will be improved for wildlife, and we'll see other species, maybe lapwing, actually moving in and actually starting to make use of those areas.
Farming can basically de-intensify in areas which are particularly good for biodiversity and wildlife. Given the right environment and habitat, curlew can thrive. I can see a time when there's just much more wildlife around and much more room for everything, including curlew.
So we'd love for other farmers and landowners to come along and join us on the journey of trying to protect curlew. It's really important that we put in every effort to try and maximise their population and allow them to spread out across the countryside.
I walk along this bit of river quite a lot, and I just love hearing the curlew sound, the sort of bubbling sound that you get, and I'd love to protect that. That's why I'm doing it.
I've loved it when you do see, you know, them laying eggs in the nest and the chicks hatch. It's an absolute thrill.
So it's really rewarding to see projects like this where you can spend the morning out in the fields actually having an impact on the bird populations and seeing birds coming back year after year to the same places and being more successful at their breeding sites.
In an ideal world, we'd like to see the populations increasing in this area and spreading to new areas of habitat, areas they would have nested in the past but don't anymore due to the decline.
The science shows that curlews need to raise a chick to fledging every other year, and they haven't been achieving that in recent years. Curlews need a lot of support in terms of the habitat management if they're going to thrive in the future. This project has shown how that can be achieved. We're not there yet, but by working together we can secure a positive future for curlews across the length and breadth of the Upper Thames.
They're really quite spectacular and special, and something that we really want to not lose from this part of the world.
My vision for the future is that wherever you are along the Upper Thames tributary, if you decide to go for a walk in May, you'll be able to hear the song of the curlew.